You. All right, for more on this, let's welcome back in former Deputy Press Secretary at the White House, Hogan Gidley. We're also joined this morning by former Massachusetts Congressman Barney Frank. Great to have you both back on. Barney Frank, great to have you with us this morning. Take a listen to how NBC made the comparison between President Ford pardoning President Nixon shortly after taking office in the mid-1970s. Take a listen.
1 month after Nixon left, the new president, Gerald Ford, gave him a full, free, and absolute pardon, closed all this down. In retrospect, was that the right thing to do? I'm not so sure, because I think when Ford did that, he was sending a message to later presidents: the worst that you can get if you do something bad in office or otherwise is going to be that you're going to go to your seaside mansion, as Nixon did. Well, Donald Trump has a seaside mansion, too. That is not a very big punishment.
Barney, I'd like to start with you. You served in Congress for 30 years as a Democrat, very powerful Democrat from the state of Massachusetts. Just give us the perspective on this whole Trump situation from the blue perspective, if you would.
Well, I think, by the way, Alvin Bragg, I think, is an outlier here. And I think it is very clear. Your previous guest just said the Justice Department declined to prosecute. This is not the Biden administration. This is a district attorney representing one of the most liberal constituencies in America. Not even the whole of New York City, as some people realize, just the borough of Manhattan. And I think it is very significant that the Justice Department has declined to prosecute, and in fact, Merrick Garland has, I think, very unfairly been criticized for that. Frankly, for many of us on the Democratic side, we're not trying to get Donald Trump out of the race. I hope he's the nominee. Now, I'm reluctant to say that because that's not going to help him in a Republican primary. But I, as a Democrat, would rather see Donald Trump be the nominee than Ron DeSantis. In fact, I think the major impact politically here is to help Trump vis-a-vis DeSantis, and I'm sure that Ron DeSantis is, frankly, a little jealous of this. I think he has what a great conservative William F. Buckley once described as subpoena envy. That is, I think this is going to very much help Donald Trump in the nomination contest. I don't think it'll have much impact in November, but I think this is not the Democratic position. This is one district attorney in a very liberal area.
Hogan, just to want to get your response to what Congressman Frank said, and also, wasn't Bragg backed by George Soros?
Oh, yes.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm going to take a little bit of issue here with what the congressman said, is trying to disassociate this action by Bragg with the Democrat Party. In large measure, this is what the policies of Joe Biden and the left have been about for decades in this country, coming to fruition with, as you mentioned, someone like George Soros backing Bragg and other DAs across the country in St. Louis and California, all having problems, all reducing the definitions of felonies down to misdemeanors so they don't have to prosecute as many people, so they don't have to arrest as many people. And we're seeing the result of that. The direct result being spikes in crime all over this country. This is the Democrat playbook. This is the Democrat policy. And sooner or later, I think the American people are starting to understand the fact that the reason we're seeing these problems in our communities, the reason we're seeing these problems in our cities is because of failed Democrat policies, in large measure personified by someone like Bragg, refusing to go after the issues that matter to New Yorkers, and instead this concocted BS nonsense going after Donald Trump that most legal scholars call pathetic.
Yeah, not even legal scholars, Hogan, just everyday attorneys are pretty surprised by what Alvin Bragg might do. Remains to be seen. Congressman, do you know George Soros at all? Did your campaign ever accept money from George Soros?
I don't think we ever took money from George Soros. I think people have greatly exaggerated his influence. I met him once. I met him in Switzerland at a meeting arranged by the singer Bono. Bono was a very active campaigner for better, fairer policies for the rest of the world. He and George W. Bush worked very closely together to fight AIDS. And there was a provision in our legislation dealing with corruption in foreign countries that Bono was pushing, and he wanted to get the European Union to do it, and he had a meeting at which Soros was president.
Okay.
That was my only meeting with him. I do have to say, though, I think there's a disconnect in what was just said. yeah, there are some Democrats who have been soft on crime. Most Democrats have been the other way. The mainstream of the Democrats, led by President Biden, have generally challenged those people in primaries. And it's also hard to see how there's been a long Democratic plan for decades to go after Donald Trump. And I would repeat, this is a particular prosecutor in a small area. And the one thing I do want to say, though, is this. Without regard to this specific prosecution, I haven't looked into it, and I'm not commenting on the merits of the specific charge. But the argument that presidents should not be subject to criminal prosecution is wrong, in my judgment. It was disregarded under Bill Clinton. Nobody should be above the law. Whether in a particular case you should apply it is a different story.
Well, we can include Joe Biden in that conversation as well, I think, moving forward, maybe in a post-presidency for Joe Biden at some point. Hogan, just quickly on what this could look like. The New York Times with an interesting report. Trump at Mar-a-Lago, magical thinking and a perp walk fixation. Donald Trump has mused openly, again, the source, the New York Times here, about whether he should smile for the assembled media in a mugshot, I'm assuming. And he has pondered how the public would react and is said to have described the potential spectacle as a fun experience. Picking up on what the congressman said, this could be very good. As ugly as this might be for America, this could be very good for the Trump movement and the Trump candidacy, Hogan.
It could be, and it depends on how this is all played out from the Trump side. He's obviously going to embrace this and lean into the fights, into the battles, which he did for the 4 years he was in office. He's come out victorious, whether it was Russia, and the hoax and the lies surrounding that, whether it was impeachment number 1 or number 2, all kinds of issues of people going after his staff and his businesses, his family, and now him personally, of course. I think he comes out looking better on the backside of this.
Barney Frank, 15 seconds, if I can hold you to that for a response. Quick question. So you retired. Joe Kennedy takes over your seat, serves 6 years in Congress, then runs for the Senate against Ed Markey, loses to Ed Markey. What's Joe Kennedy do next?
Oh, he's been appointed, to be the American representative in Northern Ireland to encourage economic development in Northern Ireland.
Okay, place-holding position until he runs for the Senate again, maybe.
I don't know.
Okay. All right. Barney Frank, good to see you again. Thanks for being with us this morning. Hogan Gidley.
In my new job, I don't have to pretend that I know things I don't.
That's
Great.
a good thing. That's a good thing. Good to see you, Congressman. Hogan, as always, thanks a lot. Appreciate it.